Modern-day electronic slavery in China. Foxconn is one of the largest Chinese electronics manufacturers. They supply for Apple to make the iPhone and iPad. Foxconn also supplies for Nintendo to make the Wii, Sony to make the PlayStation, Amazon to make the Kindle, and Microsoft to make the Xbox 360. In fact, there's a good chance that the smartphone in your pocket, the laptop on your desk, or your personal tablet was once assembled by Foxconn. If it wasn't assembled by Foxconn, then it was assembled by a very similar company to Foxconn. Whatever company name on your device, it was most likely created by slave labor. Foxconn is taking jobs from Americans. 15,000 people lost their job to Chinese slave labor. Foxconn does indeed have factories all over China, and it also has facilities in a lot of other countries, including the United States and Europe. A child laborer is paid 3.5 yuan, or 50 cents an hour, and must work a minimum of 300 hours a month. CBS did a report, and it showed that children as young as 12 work shifts as long as 12 to 14 hours a day, 6 days a week. Your iPhone was once a collection of parts that is often assembled by children who will never have time to play, get a decent education, or know much about anything except assembling electronics. Foxconn isn't the only contract electronics manufacturer with tens of thousands of Chinese employees working long hours at low wages, but they are the largest manufacturer discovered to this point. You might have heard of an electronics factory in China called Foxconn. They were known for numerous labor violations and abuses that turned some heads, even in China, including absurd amounts of overtime and not getting paid for what they were owed, and cramped and horrible working conditions. Many American electronics companies were under fire to improve these conditions after it was discovered that they were profiting off the slave labor of the employed people at the facility. The most famous of these companies was Apple, but Foxconn is also known for producing many other electronics, including gaming consoles for all the major companies. As the most well-known company involved, Apple was pressured to step in and stop it. While some have said that Apple's efforts have indeed improved the conditions of the workers, those who have actually inspected the facility still found that it is not even up to code and basically a slave shop. The conditions were so bad that many workers were committing suicide. In order to prevent this, Foxconn installed nets to stop them from killing themselves. They also made some workers sign notes stating that if they were killed or if they hurt themselves through the bad conditions, that their family would not sue. Not only did they cover themselves legally instead of trying to deal with the root of the suicides, they also haven't really improved anything at all. Overtime that reaches as many as 100 hours a week is still common during busy seasons. Workers are still in cramped and terrible conditions, and workers are rarely given any overtime wages. If an employee misbehaves, they have to write a note saying what they did and confessing to it. These notes are then posted so that the whole slave shop factory is up there to humiliate them. After Foxconn was under fire for not giving employees stools to sit on, they gave some people stools, but most were not allowed to have one. And those that had could only sit on part of it so they could still be active and mobile while working.
Imports of apparel and textiles from China to the United States market are reaching beyond $4.5 billion each year. It was reported that China's number one textile firm employs children at the age of 12 to 15 years. China used hundreds of labor camps to detain petty offenders without a trial. Parents of juvenile workers have little choice but to send their children off to work, as school fees increase beyond the means of most rural families. Educational opportunities for rural children grow increasingly dim. Further, the earnings of children, however meager, represent a substantial portion of much needed income to poor families. Most workers don't even know about the human rights prohibiting this. Many of the companies behind this are popular American brands that the average consumer does not know use slave labor. If you've ever bought a cheap article of clothing at Walmart or many other retailers, there's a decent chance it was created in a sweatshop. And more than likely, a sweatshop located in China. China has a huge problem with clothing sweatshops and is one that isn't likely to go away anytime soon. It's become such a key part of their economy that despite efforts by the government and retailers, it's proven difficult to make any difference. While it is illegal to employ children at these factories, many secret investigations have shown that child labor is still alarmingly common in the sweatshops. They use these better factories, which then secretly pay sweatshops to do a lot of the more labor-intensive part of the clothing assembly, and the customer never knows. It works nicely as a shield to protect them from blame, while many desperate people who feel like they have no other option for work, including child labor under slave-like conditions for their profit. And while it may not necessarily seem like official slavery, many of these factory owners seem to think of their workers as little more than expendable property.
Barbie and Ken, Fisher-Price and Hot Wheels, all names that come to mind when thinking of toys, and all of these have been the most popular among children over the last 5 decades. And also all are headed by Mattel. Mattel is the world's largest toy importing company, and Barbie, the world's most famous doll, makes up 80% of Mattel's overall profit. Despite the joy that the toy brings to the children, Mattel is also responsible for the hardship it brings to many children. In 2002, Mattel closed its last factory. All the toys are now constructed halfway across the world in subcontracted factories in China. Because children are not protected the same under the slave labor laws in the States, children in China are manufacturing toys under poor conditions for children in the same age group all over the world with permission from China.